Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on another episode of Ask Sharifah Videocast. I am your host, Sharifah Hardie, and we have an exceptional show for you today. But before we bring in our guests, I'm going to ask you to do what I always ask you to do, and that's to go ahead and share this videocast, because friends don't let friends miss out on Ask Sharifah. So if you're just now tuning in or joining us in the chat room, if you have questions or comments for our guests, please feel free to ask them, and I'll read them to our guests. Now, today joining us is Mr. Richard Lynch, and he's going to talk about his music and some of the things he has going on. Good afternoon, Mr. Lynch. How are you?
Well, I'm doing good, and thanks for having me on.
You are so welcome. It's my pleasure. When I saw your information come across my desk, I was like, now this is interesting. I have to speak with this guy. I have to find out all about you. So you just released a new album, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I sure did. A brand new album. Been out 2 weeks now.
Oh, wow. So it's brand new.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about your history as a musician and what you typically do.
Well, I was born in a country music household. By that, I mean my dad was an incredible singer, entertainer, and I grew up listening to that great traditional country music. And didn't take very long in my life to realize that's something that I wanted to do. The music's kind of just in my blood. I'm very thankful that I grew up in a country music household. My dad was a huge influence on me.
Yes, and so you fell in love with country music. What are some of your favorite top country music songs?
Oh, well, I would have to say songs like George Strait and that stuff that George Strait does, and Amarillo by Morning by George. Probably some great old songs by Conway Twitty and great old tunes by Keith Whitley. Some of the any songs that those artists do, I'm crazy about.
Oh, wow. So now you just released your album. You talked about got a love for music from your father, but were you always a musician? Has this always been your life?
Yeah, as far as I can remember, my first on-stage performance, I was 8 years old, and my dad asked me to get up on the stage with him and do a show, and he was doing an opening act for a guy by the name of Porter Wagner. Now, Porter was on television every Saturday night, and I was pretty impressed that I got to go to the show with my mom and my dad, and I'm watching my dad perform with this guy I watch on TV every Saturday night. Well, I knew that he was pretty special, and about a half hour into Dad's show, my dad pointed down to me and my mom and said, "Mom, send Richard up on the stage here." And so my very first performance, I was 8 years old. I got to do an old Buck Owens song with my dad, and as you might imagine, an 8-year-old, it went over pretty good there with the audience. So I was bit pretty good and pretty early by that country music bug.
I can just imagine an 8-year-old up on stage singing his heart out, country western songs. I love it. Country western has so much emotion. It has so much passion, so much truth and honesty. So I think it's wonderful. So now we're going, we can't go every story along the way, but you were an 8-year-old boy bit by the country music bug, and now you just released a new album. Is this your first album? How many albums have you released?
This is our fourth nationally released album. The new song is called, the new album, I should say, is Think I'll Carry It On. And the title kind of represents how I feel about keeping in that tradition of traditional country music alive and well. And there's 12 brand new songs on the Think I'll Carry It On album. I'm very proud to say that I wrote or co-wrote all 12 of them. So I'm extremely proud of all my recordings and albums, but this one has a very special place because it's every facet of what I've done and how I wrote the music. So I put my heart and soul into this one.
Oh, wow. So can you tell us a little bit about some of the songs on your album?
Yeah, I grew up around, an agricultural way of life. We worked on a farm, still have a farm. So a lot of the album is in reference to, the country way of life. There's a song on there called "The Old Feed Store," and it makes reference as a kid. When I was a kid, that we'd go on a Saturday down with Dad, and we'd load up feed, and we'd see old guys and gals at the feed store, and the old guys would be playing checkers and whittling on the porch, and then there's a song about how I feel about today's country music. It says, one of the songs is called "They Don't Play Them Like That," and it's made in reference to where there's very little traditional flavor of today's music. But it's just songs from the heart, and there's a couple songs on there that I'm very passionate about our men and women of the military. And there's a couple songs on there that make reference to the military appreciation. A song called "We're American Proud," another song called "Love Tattoo Foundation," and that's what just kind of shows my appreciation for the military, I guess you might say.
Okay, so you have one that you mentioned, "Love Tattoo Foundation."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's a song, but you also have that as a foundation?
Yes, ma'am. My wife started a foundation to where we can raise money and do what we can to help our troops. There's actually there's a place in Michigan called the Whirlwind Lodge, and once a year, every summer, we go up there and we perform and do a concert, and we raise money for veterans. And ironically enough, I did a show with a guy by the name of Ronnie McDowell, and Ronnie had some huge hits in the 70s and 80s. And he's still quite active today on the road tour, but Ronnie was a big influence on me, and I was lucky enough to do a show with Ronnie. I've always loved his music. Then I found out he did 3 tours of duty in Vietnam. So I thought, wow, this guy, I love his music, and now I love the guy. And so I asked him to get in the studio and record a song called "Love Tattoo" with me, and he did. And all the proceeds from that particular song goes to help the Whirlwind Lodge, which is a foundation and an organization for veterans.
Oh, wow. So what does Love Tattoo symbolize?
Well, it has nothing to do with ink. When people hear the word "love tattoo," they kind of question what it's all about. And the love tattoo is basically a sacrifice, a scar, a situation where the soldier has either had a physical scar or a psychological scar, and that's their tattoo that they carry with them.
Oh, wow. That is powerful. And so through music, it helps to heal those tattoos or those scars that they carry with them.
Absolutely. I do at least one show a year in Michigan for these fine folks, and it's pretty emotional when you see these guys and gals come up to you, and some of them are obvious. They have physical scars, and some of them are not quite so obvious with their emotional scars. But when they walk up to me and thank me for what I've done, I quickly correct them, and I let them know that it's not what I've done. It's in appreciation for what the veterans have done. And they're very grateful to have what respect we can and help we can to give to them. They're so grateful. They don't ask for anything, but it's nice to see folks, step up and do things for these folks.
Yes, but not only seeing folks step up and do it, but you're someone who's stepping up and doing it personally. So is the military were you someone who served in the military, or did your family serve in the military?
Well, my grandpa served, both my grandparents. So my dad served, my brother served, but I did not. I had a huge appreciation at a very young age, and of course I still do, but this is my way of giving back a little bit because I had such an enormous respect and appreciation for those folks.
I can imagine to have a whole entire family who serves, definitely want to support them and support you. Where can people find your album? Well,
the best place to go is to go to Richard Lynch Band. That's LYNCH, richardlynchband.com. And, you can find our merchandise, our tour schedule, all our different events, and all these different radio interviews that I do all over the country and all over the world. But just go to Richard Lynch Band, and you'll find everything out about me you want to find out.
Yes, I think there's plenty more that we want to find out about you, Mr. Lynch. So if you're just now tuning in, we are speaking with Richard Lynch of the Richard Lynch Band, and we're discussing his new album as well as his Love Tattoo Foundation. So we want to welcome Francis, who says, congratulations, Richard. That is awesome. Our Rashid joined us, Crystal, Victoria, Dr. Palmer are tuning in to the show. Again, if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section, and I'll go ahead and read it to our guests. So Francis says, that's awesome, Richard.
Well, thank you, Francis. I don't know where you're calling from, but it's good to know that there's a lot of folks out there that share the same passion and appreciation that I do. And, my number one passion in life is to keep real traditional country music alive and well. And if I can find things to help people and still keep my my music alive and well, that's a pretty good day as far as I'm concerned.
What are some of the changes that you've noticed in the music?
Well, today a lot of country music today has kind of lost its heart. The lyrics has just been really dumbed down to the point where not everybody wants to chase a girl in a pickup truck. It's really hard to get into the next 700. So, but there's a lot of great topics, a lot of great writers, and what today's music is missing is that real heartfelt emotion. The country music is from the heart, and I get so many people telling me things like, well, I heard the song that you recorded and you wrote, it's almost as if you wrote it for me. And that's the genius about traditional country music. It's simple, but it's from the heart, and people have a sense of connection with that music. I think that's what's really missing in today's country music.
Do you feel there's a specific reason why it's missing from today's country music? Do you feel as if the younger people or the newer people who are going into country music aren't making the same connection? Maybe they're not tapping into the same emotions. Maybe they're not willing to be as raw and real and express those emotions? Or not a clue?
Well, there may be some of that. Yeah, there may be some of all that, but the truth of the matter is it's about very little folks, very people from Nashville are still in Nashville. Nashville's been bought out by LA and all the bro and all the different type of music. They've kept the name country music because country music was very viable and you could make a lot of money. They've kept the name, but they've not kept the music. And so, a lot of folks, if you listen to today's country music, they're basically, it doesn't take somebody who knows country music and has followed country music for years. It doesn't take very, very long to see through some of the newer acts. And really, it's pretty self-evident, because if they have one song, that's almost certain they're not going to have a follow-up, because they're here today and gone tomorrow, which means they can't connect with the audience. They can't connect with their folks that want to hear the music, because they have nothing to give them a connection with, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. I mean, it sounds to me, when we mention it becomes more like LA or other places, that it becomes more commercialized, that the person is writing a song because this is what they think they should say, or someone told them this is what they should say, as opposed to having that moment where you really are feeling some authentic feeling and you just want to write about it. You just want to share about it. You want to pour that feeling into the music.
That's very well said. I exactly how it is. And, fortunately, though, there's a lot of young folks out there that's gravitating to our music and traditional country music. I know several folks that are quite entertainers, very good vocalists, and they're trying to hitch their wagon with what we're doing. And, I'm all about helping anybody especially a younger person that loves the music. But, you know, if they want to hang with me, they want to keep it traditional. That's the direction I want to go. And it's great to see people really take that interest again, especially the young folks.
I can see there's definitely a path, but when you say traditional and the emotion, now 4 albums later, how do you stay connected? I mean, do you still go play at the same, you know, place where you always started playing your music? How do you stay connected 4 albums later?
Well, we play all over the country, and, you know, I try to be really, you know, conscious of somebody's conversation, or I try to listen for things or hear things that really connect with me. And if I hear a conversation or a topic and it strikes me, I just drop what I'm doing. I stop and I write that down, and I grab my guitar, and you know, I try to put some music to whatever that just moved me, whether it's a conversation or a topic, or if I see something that moves me in general. But to stay in the business, you better love what you do. My first paid gig was in June of 1978, so I've been doing this for quite a while.
Yeah.
But I love the music. I love what it does. I love how people gravitate to the music, and they're really hungry for something that's really real. They can connect with the music. I think that's the reason I'm having the success that we're having, is because I tend to keep my music simple, in the sense that it's not overproduced and not not too wordy, because most country people, they want to follow, they want to hear a message, they want to be able to connect with that message. And unfortunately, a lot of times musicians try to impress musicians, and they play over the heads of the listeners out there. So I never want to do that.
Yes, if you are just now tuning in, we are speaking with Richard Lynch of the Richard Lynch Band. He has a new album that's out, and you can pick it up on his website at richardlynchband.com. I want to thank David Wellborn for coming in, Kevin, Ifami, Sherry for joining us. If you have questions or comments, please be sure to add it to the comment section, and I'll go ahead and read it to our guest. Also, go ahead and share this interview. We're discussing country music, traditional country music, today's country music, and what's new for Richard Lynch Band. Now, your new album was released 2 weeks ago, but you have different events. What do you have coming up where you're playing soon? What do you have coming up scheduled?
Well, Friday night, I'm playing just north of Cincinnati, Ohio, at a casino called the Miami Valley Casino. Saturday night, which would be June the 15th, I believe it is, we will be performing at our farm. We have a beautiful farm, and once a month, June through October, the warm weather months, we bring a Grand Ole Opry star to our farm, and along with us, we have a major concert there in our farm in Williamsville, Ohio. It just so happens this Saturday is the very first one of the year, so we're excited to have that. We virtually play all over the country. Our music's being played in rotation right now in 40 plus different countries. Like, once again, if you just go to richardlynchband.com, if we're not close, we'll be close to your listeners at some point, I'm sure. But I love taking road trips, and it's amazing how many people will spend a vacation or just to come see us play from time to time. It's pretty amazing to see people go out of their way and drive 300, 400, 500 miles to one of our shows. It's pretty humbling, actually.
Wow. Now, you mentioned earlier, a few minutes ago, that you did your first paid gig in '78, and
yes,
it's now 2019. I know so many people are saying, I don't know how to get out there. I don't know how to book gigs. I don't, is it social media? What are some of the things that you do in order to stay relevant?
Well, I'm very fortunate. I've got a wife that supports me. I've got a great management team. I have a ambition and a determination to where, I want to do the music. And if I was given a suggestion or maybe a piece of advice to some young folks out there, I would say definitely surround yourself with people that believe in you. Do not let any, people tell you can't do something or you shouldn't be doing this or you'll never do that, because negativity is never going to get you anywhere. But surround yourself with good people that have a belief in you, and always strive to make the best sound and write the best songs you possibly can, because the success of the music is in the song. If you're a good songwriter, you really need to struggle to be a better songwriter. That's kind of the best suggestion that I could give some folks.
Okay, which to me just opened up a whole bunch of other questions, and we're not going to have the Richard Lynch Band School right now, but there's a lot that we can learn. How does one become a better songwriter? I mean, do you have points where you get writer's block, or you're not sure what that emotion is? Maybe you don't know, how you want to say or phrase or even sing that emotion. How does one become a better songwriter?
Well, I heard an interview with Chris Christopherson one time, and he said something to the effect that, the first 1,000 songs I wrote probably wasn't worth a darn. Well, he laughed and said, after you keep writing, you immediately do better. You're your own best critic or your own worst critic, and just because you're writing a song, it may or may not be your best work, but if you have that inspiration, always write it, always put it down, always record it, because you just better yourself as a writer, because now you've got that one, maybe it's not so good underneath of you, but you've already taken the next step for the next song, because nobody's ever going to write a number one song every time. I think what Chris is saying is, always write the song and always strive to make it as good as you possibly can.
Were there songs on any of your albums, especially this album, since it's your latest, where the response to it surprised you, where you felt as if people will respond more to maybe the second track, whereas they really loved the eighth track, or where you felt like this is the song that everybody's going to love, and they didn't necessarily feel that song?
Well, I think probably the strongest or the most unbelievable connection that we've made is a song that I wrote on there called Back in 1953. And it makes reference to a guitar that my dad had given me. It was made way back in the 1950s. And I was playing the guitar, and this is kind of how the song came to be. I was doing a show with Exile. Exile is a huge country music group back in November. And I got to meet their guitar technician, and we got to having a conversation, and I knew that he told me that he restores and does all these great guitars. Well, I told him that I had a guitar that my dad had given me when I was 19 years old. It's the old 1950s Gibson guitar. It needed refresh and some work. And he said, Richard, you can trust me. I would do you a great job. So I did. I let him have it, and he had it for a couple of weeks, and I got it back home. And I was so blown away with how good a job he did. And then I'm holding the guitar, and I'm playing the guitar, and I realized that I hadn't played this guitar since I was 19 years old.
Oh, wow.
So emotion took over, and I wrote the song back in 1953. Now, the guitar is actually made in 1957, but I used the word 1953 because it was easier to write to rhyme with the song. But the storyline is still heartfelt, and I'm blown away with how many people connect with that particular song all over the world.
Oh, wow. So you didn't expect them to connect to that song in 1953 as much as they did?
I did not. I really wrote it because it was a personal experience for me. I'm playing the guitar that I got to play, my dad played, and then I got to play as a kid. So I wrote it very personal, but once again, the personal effect was personal enough for other people because everybody has a dad, and if their dad played music, or if there's some kind of a family tradition where music was in their family, that song hits home with them. And I think that's what's happened with a lot of people that hear the song.
Yes, I think you are correct. It's about tapping into that emotion, the actual real emotion, because if people can tap into that emotion, then they'll enjoy the song. And it wasn't really about the guitar or playing the guitar. It's about, like you said, about having a dad and that emotion that you tap into when you remember those feelings.
Exactly right. You know, as a kid, you know, I can still see my dad playing that, and all those emotions kind of flooded over me as I was writing the song. And I was lucky enough. I have a guitar player named Tim Bennington that's been playing lead with me for about 3 years now, and my brother Robert. We were sitting around the kitchen table, and I had this idea, and I said, "You guys put some input on this. Said you what you think." And between the three of us, we all come up with that song. So it's pretty special. I got my brother as a writer on that one, and then my friend Tim. So man, that more involved with me.
Sounds interesting. So again, let us have the name of your new album and where we can find it.
Well, the new album is called "Think I'll Carry It On," and it's in all reference and the direction of the carrying on that traditional country music out there.
And where can we find it?
At the richardlynchband.com.
richardlynchband.com. So we're not going to hold you too much longer, but at the end of every show, what I like to do is allow my guests the opportunity to just speak to the viewers and let them know what you want them to take away from your interview. So I'll just give you a few minutes.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for letting me be a part of your show. I really appreciate that. And to all the listeners out there, you know, I'm so humble when they take time to come to our shows and spend their hard-earned money and buy merchandise and recordings and records and all that good stuff. There's nothing more gratifying and more personal that when I get to meet these folks. And if they come to the show, I'd love to spend just a minute or two with them, shake their hand, hug their neck, and let them know that, I appreciate each and every one of those folks that come to our show. And, as far as I'm concerned, they got a friend for life, because I genuinely want to be around them and genuinely appreciate everything they do.
Well, I appreciate you, and I thank you for being a guest on today's episode of Ask Sharifah Videocast.
Well, thank you, dear. I hope we get to cross paths again.
I believe we definitely will. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in, for Ray, for Maureen, for Linda, who just joined us. Please go ahead and share this interview. I learned a lot about country western. Go ahead and pick up that album at richardlynchband.com. Also want to thank our sponsor, Fireball Approves, Miss Tammy Sorrento, for sponsoring the show. So if you're interested in a new apartment or rental for your travel vacation, definitely want to make sure it's a legitimate listing and not a scam. And you can do that at fireballapproves.com. For more interviews, for sponsorship opportunities, or to be a guest, visit my website at asksharifah.com. Until then, everyone have a wonderful day.